There are 6 facets of Shad Bala. One of the most important is directional strength, or Dig Bala. That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. So talking about directional strength. In Vedic Astrology, very important quality of the planets has to do with the directional strength, and that's called Dig Bala. It's one of the most important facets of Shad Bala, the 6-fold system of planetary evaluation in Vedic Astrology. So I did a recent video on Sthana Bala, which means standing and how the planet is standing, whether it's standing up strong. That one is quite complicated. At least it has several components. It evaluates Ucha Bala, Saptavargaja Bala, Ojayogama Bala, I'll say that one very well, Kendra Bala, Directional Bala. So all of those go to making Sthana Bala, right? How the planet is standing and its resilience to stand in integrity. Dig Bala is simpler. It's actually just the directional strength. Planets do better, or they have a certain strength to move us forward in a certain direction when they're in certain angles, right? And they receive a high score based on their proximity to that angle. Now, they don't have to be in the angle, but close to the angle, and they get a higher score. Planets that are very far away from the angle on which they have directional strength will get a higher score. Will get a lower score. For example, the Sun and Mars have directional strength in the 10th house. So when they're in the 4th house or around the 4th house, completely opposite, their directional strength is lower. If they're in the 1st or the 7th, it's average because it's in between the two. So, like everything in Vedic astrology, the first part and the most surface and even kind of mundane quality is just being able to kind of mechanically identify it and then say it's good or bad, like I just did. It's good in the 10th, it's bad in the 4th. Oh, your sun is in the 4th. That's not good because it's strong in the 10th, so it's not good in the 4th. You've heard it before. Well, why? You got to explain it, right? Like everything else. Oh, your sun is good in the 10th house. Okay, what's good about it? It's good for your career. Okay, how? Because, for example, the moon has directional strength. Moon and Venus have directional strength in the 4th house. But if they're in the 10th house, they're also good for the career. They help the career, but they create some complications. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of those things. And again, what it tells us reveals something deep about the angle themselves, about angular houses themselves. It also tells us very important things about the planets themselves as well, of course. And how there's a certain facet and quality of the planet that's supposed to move us forward. And this is what the angular houses are about. They have to do with the 1st house, which is our physical body and our personal identity. And again, the angles are like the pillars of a room. The room you're in probably has 4 angles, 4 pillars holding up the walls. That's really what the angular houses are like. They're like the pillars, right? And if you even just get one planet with a lot of directional strength, especially in the angle, it's going to really help to hold up and support that angle. It's going to really buttress that. But again, it can also be close to the angles. It doesn't have to be in it to have a high directional strength. But in it, of course, is the strongest. And opposite that can show a kind of weakness. And it might even take energy away from that angle and away from that planet in some sense, to some degree. But angular houses in general have a structure. Again, it's a structure that we fall back on. So again, this is the way you want to understand angular houses. And we might have that structure that we fall back on that is a support for our life, but it might also be something that we rely on that keeps us messed up a little bit. Like I just said, it might give us this career. Let's say it's Moon or Venus in the 10th house. It's going to support our fame, and people in the public will like us and things like that. But it might also make us too fickle about our work. It might also make us want to find jobs where we just get along with the people rather than want to do something that we think is right, where we're too fussy about the people we work with, and we sort of mommy them, or we kind of don't have good boundaries because we're making work too personal, and that holds us back in our career, because the 10th house is literally our vision and our purpose, our svadharma. This is why the Sun and Mars support the goal of the 10th house, and the 10th house supports the goal of Mars and the Sun. So this is the way you want to see that directional strength. It's like a unification of the direction that the house wants to, take us in, and the support it offers, and the direction that the planet wants to move us as well, right? It wants to move us forward in a certain way and move us toward a higher level of awareness and consciousness, and those angular positions support or detract from that. And so it's part of the Bala score, right? So I just talked about two of them. You can see they're also sort of paired opposites. Sun and Mars, directional strength in the 10th. Moon and Venus, directional strength in the 4th, right? When they're opposite each other, like I just talked about Moon and Venus in 10th, but what about Sun, Mars near the 4th house? Well, 4th house is about the thing that's hidden and emotional and psychological. You get the Sun or Mars there who are trying to get out there and, find something to fight for. You're right? This fire that wants to crusade and change the world and have the personal strength and vision. 4th house, we're like emotional, and we're private, and we're wanting to be comforted. Again, things that support the Moon and Venus, where we're supposed to go inward and connect to our heart. Where we're supposed to go inward and ponder our romantic involvement and our pleasure and all that, right? So, big lessons around directional strength. It's not enough to just mechanically identify it. You want to be able to interpret it like everything. When you see that in someone's chart, you explain it, right? Then the other sort of pair in the directional strength is the 1st and 7th houses, where Mercury and Jupiter have power in the 1st house. They really support 1st house issues, and Saturn really supports 7th house themes. So again, what's the 1st and the 7th house? Again, it also really brings into contrast all of the angles. 4th house is opposite the 10th house. 10th house is our rise in life. Mars and the Sun support that. 4th house is like the roots of the tree, where we retreat from our public life into our heart, into our values. Moon and Venus are good there. 1st house, Mercury and Jupiter have directional strength. They really support the qualities of the 1st house, which have to do with your truthful identity, has to do with living life spontaneously, living your life spontaneously, taking chances that you should be taking. Out of focus here. There we go. And not getting beaten down by life's minor setbacks. You see, one of the biggest problems when we have when we have difficulties in the 1st house, like for example when Saturn is there, is we stop living spontaneously. We stop literally like participating. 1st house is where it's our physical body, not just physical body, but it's what we're doing with it. Are we out there engaged? Are we present in our physical body? Are we living life? Having experiences. So when planets are in the 1st house, they get us engaged. They're very present. And Mercury there really supports our engagement with life because it's curious and it's engaging with people, likes to communicate, likes to talk, likes to, enjoy and play with things and be curious. And when bad things happen to us, it's good to have a sense of humor. We can get over it. And again, the 1st house is where it's our identity. So it's my interests, my involvement, not my partner's, right? When Mercury's in the 7th, then it's my partner's interest. It's my partner's. It's other people's ideas, not my ideas. What other people are interested in, not what I'm interested in. You see? Jupiter, same thing, but Jupiter is different. Jupiter allows us and really supports the first house because it's really good to be hopeful. Because life is going to kick us down. Sometimes we're going to fail. We're going to try things. They're not going to work. People aren't going to like us. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to get sick. All kinds of stuff. And those things are going to tempt us, again, to want to just shut down. Think of Saturn in the first, which prevents that spontaneous engagement because we're afraid to make a mistake. We're afraid that we'll look foolish, right? Which is Saturn in the first house. We remember all of the mistakes that we've made, which is what Saturn does, and we're careful not to make those mistakes again. But again, that's good for the 7th house. That's good with other people. For the first house, we're supposed to get engaged, and Saturn can prevent that engagement, right? Jupiter helps us rise above all of that darkness, and when life throws us a curveball, we overcome. You know, when we get lemons, we make lemonade with Jupiter. It's like, okay, well, I have this. And we find a higher purpose, a higher meaning behind things, and we grow in philosophy and finding higher meaning, right? It might not even be a good one, but at least it's beneficial to first house things, which is our evolving identity, and Jupiter things, which is about to seek higher meaning. We're supposed to be engaged with that. And again, I already mentioned Saturn a little bit, but Saturn has a directional strength in the 7th house, which has to do with other people. We need to be careful with our engagements and our involvements with other people. When Saturn is in the 7th house or near the 7th house, we have a healthy respect for being engaged with other people and getting intimate too quickly. We've learned to be careful with others and to not just seek connection, anywhere we can find it. Again, think of Mercury or Jupiter there. Jupiter in the 7th. It's like we get involved with someone and, oh, you're the most amazing thing. And our hopes and inspirations and philosophies come from other people with Jupiter. And which just leads to disappointment. Mercury, our ideas and our speech and our things we're interested in, other people's interests, can take away from the quality of Mercury and take away from the first house. With Saturn, again, we're supposed to be careful with others. Not only careful, but we're supposed to be focused and determined to make it work and work hard and be committed and all of those things. That's what Saturn is about. The willingness to endure the difficulty, not just run when it gets difficult. Again, that's also Mercury and Jupiter, right? It's also how Mercury doesn't support 7th house, because 7th house is about work. It's not about fun. The part of relationships that lasts for a long time, which is the 7th house quality, isn't the fun quality, right? It's the work quality for the most part. So again, we're supposed to put that work into a situation that's two people, we respect it, we're willing to work on it, we have realistic expectations. But you bring that same nature of Saturn into the first house, where we're supposed to live spontaneously and try new things and not be so worried about all the mistakes that could happen. And it can mess it up. So these are a few things to understand about the directional strength. It's really important bringing together these two factors, the planet and the angle,